Good evening. I'm Lisa Groot, a member of the Dubuque League of Women Voters. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active citizen participation in government. Membership is open to any citizen 18 years of age or older. We'd like to thank the Dubuque County candidates for their participation this evening and for their invaluable gift to Dubuque County by being candidates for public office. We are disappointed that not all candidates chose to attend this evening. I'll be the only person asking questions tonight, but cards are being distributed so that the audience may ask their questions. Question sorters will try to include as many fair questions as possible. It's a little musical interlude for fair questions. The League welcomes County Attorney candidates Richard Kirkendall and Sam Whitten, County Recorder candidates Keith Lucy and John Murphy, Supervisor candidates Ann McDonough and Jay Wickham, and County Treasurer candidate Angela Steffens. So, Mr. Kirkendall, we will begin with you. Please tell us why you're running for Dubuque County Attorney.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to the League for having us. I think it is valuable to get the candidates all in one place if we can, and get the answers to some of the same questions and be able to have that discussion. I'm running for county attorney because I cherish Dubuque and because I cherish the role of prosecutors in our criminal justice system. Having grown up here, it was a safe community to grow up in. I really value the childhood that I had in it, and I want to be able to provide that to my children too. I want to keep them growing up in a safe and welcoming Dubuque, and part of that is people going about their daily lives knowing that it is a safe community. It's a place where if you do happen to be a victim of crime, it will be dealt with swiftly, fairly, and justice will be administered in an even-handed way. That's the goal, at least. Everyone should know that when their case is being handled by prosecutors in Dubuque County, it's being handled with justice and truth as the lodestar. So the reasons that I'm running are basically to bring that focus and that direction to the county attorney's office from the perspective of someone who's done that job most of my career.
Thank you. Mr. Whitten.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. Sam Whitten, I'm running for Dubuque County Attorney because over the past 4 years, I've seen a degradation in the consistency and function of the county attorney's office. We're all familiar at this point with the dysfunction with personnel in that office, but what's more important to me is that justice requires consistent results. Results, when we hold them next to each other, make sense in context. That doesn't seem like too much to ask from our justice system, but over the past several years, it has been. I want to work into the county attorney's office to provide consistent results so that people who commit violent offenses, especially when they involve weapons in our community, receive the stiffest and harshest penalties we can impose. I also want to create an atmosphere of teamwork that I feel has been lacking in that office. Teamwork is the most critical thing in a law practice. As an attorney myself in private practice, I've been fortunate to work with other attorneys from across the country and across the hall to get the best results for my clients. That means taking other people's ideas, sharing ideas, and challenging one another with the best of the best idea is the one that we present to a jury. And I want to bring that attitude and that atmosphere to the county attorney's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lucy.
Thank you, Lisa, and the League of Women Voters, and everybody who's investing their time to watch this broadcast here as well. I grew up in Dubuque, and I look at this as a way to serve Dubuque County. I've worked all over the country in different parts of the world with events and leading and working with different organizations, but I grew up in Dubuque, and I look at this as a way to serve the county and bring it back into Dubuque here and just really have a whole atmosphere of service. I grew up in Dubuque here. My father's Nick, my brother's Eric, wife Annette, and I have been married 27 years and raised two great children. And I've served from leadership roles from captains of wrestling teams in high school and college to National Guard team leaders, and just bringing over 35 years of practical business experience and leading people in difficult situations and bringing teams together for a common goal and looking for different ways to, I guess in this position, to bring a fresh perspective and a new set of eyes to find different efficiencies as I've found in other parts of my personal and business experience.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, why are you seeking re-election?
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. That's been a staple for local candidates for decades. I was very disheartened to hear that all of the Republican candidates took the unprecedented steps of backing out in order to go spend some time with the governor. But enough about them. When I ran for my first term, I expressed a desire to lead the recorder's office with two goals. First, to modernize the office, and secondly, to provide exceptional customer service. So have we modernized the office? Absolutely. We now have hosted servers in Tier 4 data centers instead of having them in servers up in the attic of the courthouse. Someone used to have to take cartridges home for that backup set of data just in case something ever happened at the courthouse. Now in those Tier 4 data centers, those are data centers that host our nation's most important data that are incredibly difficult to crack or to have natural disasters affect. We've digitized all of our Dubuque County land records and all of our military records. The land records are publicly accessible on our website, and we're one of only a few in Iowa and only a few dozen across the country that have that done. And we've remodeled the office that now meets ADA requirements. And have we provided exceptional customer service? Absolutely. That's what motivates me. That's what motivates our office. One example is when Deputy Recorder Carol Kennedy got a standing ovation from family and friends of a young couple because they forgot to pick up their marriage license on a Friday night. So she went down to the courthouse, picked it up, and delivered it to the cathedral right down the aisle. If I'm reelected, I'll continue to focus on providing exceptional customer service and always look to provide modern solutions to the challenges that we face.
Thank you. Ms. McDonough.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you to my colleagues at the League. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I treasure the role that we play in this room as we see democracy work in action. I am seeking my second term as a Dubuque County Supervisor because I think the current board has the ability to be dynamic and highly effective for the county. We live in a county that is blessed with richness that many other counties do not have. We have growth, we have financial good standing, we have the ability to affect workforce creation through our higher education that's located throughout the county. There are many good positive things that we are working on here. Clean water, childcare expansion, housing. It is happening here. The issues that you read about and you fear at the national level, solutions are being done here throughout our 21 cities. And so I would ask for the opportunity to continue to lead and be an effective part of the team.
Thank you. Mr. Wickham.
Once again, thank you for the League of Women Voters for putting this on. It's an excellent opportunity, and thanks for all that have attended here as well and are watching online. I've mentioned this before in these other forums, but it's important to me, and I think it's worth mentioning. But I started in 2016 in the Board of Supervisors with the death of Tom Hancock. And Tom was from Epworth, my hometown, and had been a Dubuque County Supervisor, obviously, and a state senator, and a volunteer firefighter, and then the president of the Iowa Volunteer Firefighters Association. So for me, taking over his place from day one, it was clear it was about public service. It was about trying to make the most positive impact I can on the County Board of Supervisors and to make good decisions that will lead to positive outcomes for those citizens. And so I enjoy the process. I enjoy working with the citizens. I enjoy working with the other governments. I enjoy working with the community organizations. We've had a lot of opportunities to do that over the last year or so. And so in closing, I believe I have good decision-making processes for the citizens of Dubuque County, and I believe I can make a difference.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens, why are you running for treasurer?
Thank you for the League for inviting us to this evening. I started with the county when I was 23 years old. I was hired by the previous treasurer, Eric Stearman. So I've worked for Dubuque County for the last 18 years with 12 years experience with the treasurer's office, where I'm currently serving as deputy treasurer of property tax and finance. Having firsthand knowledge and experience of the day-to-day operations in the office and the department is beneficial to the public and the staff so that there is no interruption to service. The goal of the treasurer is to make sure customer service is exceptional, and with my knowledge and background, I ensure to keep that a priority, as well as working with other department heads and managers to make sure that I am a success at what I do. Having grown up in rural Dubuque County my entire life, raising my family with my husband out in Sherrill, and also running a small business, I know that I have hard work and dedication that I will commit to Dubuque County.
Thank you all. We have a few questions that get at this issue. So in this era of divisiveness, how will you work with coworkers or members of the community whose views are politically and ideologically different than yours? And please give examples. We'll begin with Mr. Whitten.
So that's a great point. We do live in a time of great divisiveness, and it makes people more embedded to where they find themselves just naturally. So Republicans have gotten more Republican, Democrats have gotten more Democrat. And that is difficult to kind of bridge that gap. What I found in my knocking doors here in Dubuque County over the past 8 months is that most folks can agree on the simple things. We want a community that's safe. We want a community that prioritizes safety and protects our community from violent offenders who use weapons. Specific organizations to reach out to in our community, it's easy for me to reach out to organizations like the Fountain of Youth, the Dream Center. They kind of align with my principles anyway. The harder groups to reach out to may be somebody like the Dubuque Patriots, who I don't have a relationship with, or some of the more rural organizations I don't spend a lot of time interacting with in my daily practice. So that is something I'd have to work at to bridge that divide. But as far as inside the office of the Dubuque County Attorney, look, there's people that work in that office that are Republicans, there's people that work in that office that are independents and Democrats, and they all have a place with me.
Thank you. Mr. Lucy, same question.
Bridge to divide, I have no division. This is the county recorder's office. This is a team. And actually, it's a very well-oiled team as far as the frontline workers that basically run the office there. I would see this as a position to be a leader and a captain of the team to make sure I'm helping them reach their goals. Find out more about them as I have throughout teams and coaching for years, even in military. Everybody was green. We had no right. We had no left. We were one unit moving together for common good. That's what this is about. It's about a service position. Politics plays no positions in the recorder's office whatsoever. My whole goal is to lead the team and make sure that we're doing what we can to serve the entire community, whether it's in Luxembourg, Worthington, Dyersville, right here in Dubuque. It's an entire team that we're looking to work with. I've done that for over 35 years in coaching, in theater, in community service, and volunteering in church, and even from Cub Scouts to Boy Scouts, leading people through that. We look at what their goals are, not my goals, because it's about service. This is a position that I'm here to serve in the county, not to promote political views of any type here.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, I understand that the recorder's office is by Iowa code, is a partisan political office. However, I don't care if a customer's a Democrat or Republican, an independent, libertarian, or a sovereign citizen for that matter. They deserve exceptional customer service, and that's what they're going to get in our office. I've been given tremendous responsibilities, and much of it is due to my bipartisan reputation. I've served on the Iowa Community Action Agency statewide commission since 2016, initially appointed by Governor Branstad and reappointed by Governor Reynolds twice. That is, in case anybody doesn't know, they're both on the Republican side. I'm a proud Democrat, but they've appointed me because they've seen me work in a bipartisan fashion since I've been elected. When I sought re-election in 2018, I was endorsed by over 20 Republican county recorders from across the state, primarily recorders, a couple supervisors in there as well. I'm a well-respected county recorder in Iowa and across the country. So why did they support my candidacy? It's because our office has been recognized an industry leader in Iowa and across the country. The State Association of Counties monthly magazine featured the Dubuque County Recorder's Office for our cutting-edge digital project. Our software vendor, COT Systems, used Dubuque County as an example to counties all across the country to show best practices. All across Iowa, counties are spending money right now, ARPA funds that they went to their board to get funds for, to try and emulate exactly what we did to digitize all our records. So you're welcome, supervisors. I didn't come looking for ARPA money to do this project because we've already done it.
Ms. McDonough.
So this is a major concern that I have about the division that we have in our community at the global level, national level, and of course it's here locally as well. You asked for specific things that I am doing, recognizing that there is this divisiveness, and I think that it goes to our core character as a community. Can we work together? Are we still a county of neighbors? There's several things that I have done specifically. First of all, when I was elected, we started mayors' meetings. The mayors from all of the communities meet on a quarterly basis. They are invited to do that. That has been very successful in bridging differences between Democrats, Republicans. It doesn't matter your color when you're in that room. Secondly, I knock door to door. I don't use any screening mechanism. I go down one side of the street and turn around and go down the other. The final thing I would say is that during my campaign, I have completed 5 coffee and conversation sessions, the last one last night in Epworth, where I invite all citizens, I advertise in the county newspapers, to join me. Last night was pizza. It's also been coffee and donuts. It's been through 5 locations, simply trying to have basic conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Wickham.
One of the things I like to say to my kids and others is that it's better to understand before you're understood. And so the first thing is to try to have the person across the room from you or across the desk voice their ideas and their beliefs and listen honestly to try to make sure you have a right perspective. The other component that just comes natural to me is that, you know, for 30 years in business, I never once, and I'm still advising businesses today, ask anyone if they're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. And so generally speaking, in my DNA, it doesn't matter. Now, there are principles and there are party platforms, and unfortunately, many of the elected positions at a local level are still partisan, and I would generally vote to change that if I had the power. Specifically, what I've done to try to accomplish it, I think, you know, first thing is I don't fan any flames. I mean, if you look at my Facebook, if you look at my comments, you're not going to see inflammatory things related to Democrats and Republicans and maybe the higher ups that get a lot of those attentions. Another example would be a lot of the votes that we have. And so just today I was at the Liberty Recovery Center. The governor was also there. It's a great local project that I supported and that Republican Harley Potoff supported as well. And I recognized him for that when I was speaking. Thank you for the support. And it's good to have the governor come, even though she's a Republican.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens, how will you work with people across the political spectrum?
Well, as the treasurer's office, we're there to serve anyone for the public. We are there to issue auto license, pay the property tax. Depending on what your political party is, it doesn't come into effect in our office. We're there to do our job and make sure that everyone is served equally and at the same rate as everyone else. If someone tends to argue with us, debating us on politics, we're there to agree to disagree and just listen to them and also give them any service depending on what they want. Just keep politics out of it. No matter what they want, the laws and policies that are set by the Iowa Department of Transportation, we're there just to follow them and keep everything working smoothly. We just all need to work together just to serve the community, no matter what their political party is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkendall, excuse me.
Yeah, a big part of the reason that I'm running without a party is because it's sort of anathema to criminal prosecution to have a prosecutor who favors one party or another, to have people come into the courtroom and think they're going to be treated differently because of what their politics are or anything else about them. And I think my track record as a prosecutor has shown that that's what that job is about. It's about treating everyone equally, and it's about going to bat for victims of crime. You know, I was primarily prosecuting domestic and sexual abuse cases the last 4 years. And in those cases, we had victims from across the spectrum of Dubuque County, you know, men, women, color, creed, everything different. But all of them, I think, would vouch for the job that I did in bringing their case to trial, if that was the right result, or at least getting it to some just resolution. A lot of that comes from having a background in the Army too. You know, that's the one organization where you can join and just be thrust into difficult situations with people from all over the country. And what brings people together in that situation is having a common goal, having a mission that everyone is focused on. And that's what the county attorney's office needs. We need everyone to have that common goal. The mission is truth and justice in that office. And once we all have that mission, I'm confident that we'll work together very well.
Thank you. So now that we all seem to agree that party doesn't matter in any way, I'm going to have a question just for the county attorney candidates. And please know that I did not write this question. Okay. So what are your specific plans for restoring the public's confidence in the county court's office, which many consider to be a dumpster fire? How are we starting this? I think actually we're starting with Mr. Kirk.
Yeah, no, that's great. The county attorney's office has to be a competent criminal prosecution office, first and foremost. You know, that is the primary responsibility of the county attorney, and that is what the focus of the office needs to be. When people talk about it being a dumpster fire or having too much drama in the office, yes, I agree that there was too much of that, and that is 100% a function of the leadership or lack of leadership that was in that office over the last 4 years. There was not a focus on getting prosecutors to work on their cases above all else with a common goal of finding truth and justice in those cases. So the first priority for the county attorney has to be restoring the competency of that office in criminal prosecutions. And once people are confident that crime is being treated appropriately, that we're finding the truth in those cases and holding people accountable, doing justice for victims and protecting the community, that's when the county attorney's office gets the reputation that it needs. It does have a bad reputation now, and so what we need to do is focus on the actual criminal prosecution aspect.
Thank you. Mr. Wooden, how will you put out the dumpster fire?
So I think you also asked about specific plans. And for me, it begins with a mutual respect. To put out that fire, we need a team of people who are all rowing in the same direction. And that doesn't happen when you permit infighting or people feel like there's favoritism or people feel like they're not being treated equally to their peers and colleagues. So for me, it begins with mutual respect, walking into that office to people I've worked with for the past 6 years and saying, look, I know we've had our differences. I know we've disagreed on cases. Heck, I've disagreed on cases with Rich Kirkendall. But we sit across the table from one another with respect and an understanding that people are going to be treated equally, and we're going to have an attitude of humility, not out showing off, not trying to impress the paper, but to do our jobs humbly to serve this community. And that is where it has to start. Because if we want drama, drama's easy. But a mutual respect is hard. And it's going to take time to build that in that office, but that's what it needs.
Thank you. We now have a question for the supervisors, beginning with Ms. McDonough. What would your priorities be for spending money coming from the federal government's Inflation Reduction Act?
I don't know much about the federal government Inflation Reduction Act, honestly, so I guess I would need to explore that more. So I guess that's the honest answer. I would like to comment on the county attorneys. You work directly with us. Under the state constitution, the county attorney is also counsel for the supervisors, and that role has to be done competently, efficiently, and it concerns me, particularly Mr. Kirkendall, when you describe this as criminal prosecution. That's just one element. I do need to have you tell the community at large, what's the plan to help the county review contracts, help the Board of Health that's trying to hire an executive director? There are multiple needs in our county that rely on efficient and effective legal counsel. So I really do need to have, when you get an opportunity, both of you circle back and assure me that I'm not going to be hiring outside attorneys at expense to the county. You're our counsel. So what's the plan?
Actually, I'll let you to respond to that.
Okay. And thank you, Ann. That obviously is part of the county attorney's roles under the Constitution. Primarily, it is criminal prosecution. That's an office that is full of assistant prosecutors who are 100% focused on crime, and that is the vast majority of the work that happens in that office. And so I do think that that's the foundation that needs to be strong before the county attorney's office as a whole gets its reputation back. But providing good civil counsel is a big part of it too, and that's another thing that's been frankly neglected over the last 4 years. When that's housed only within one person in that office, that is not a good way to get that work done, especially when there are major crimes happening, trials happening, things like that. So we do need attorneys who are specialized in the civil practice who will be primarily responsible for answering those questions. And obviously, there are going to be big questions that the county attorney has to chime in on and has to be a part of. But when Sunnycrest has a question about a contract, or when the sheriff's office is trying to negotiate something and they need a legal opinion, we should be able to provide that very quickly. It shouldn't be that you have to refer things to law firms in Cedar Rapids to get those answers.
Would you like to respond?
Sure. I've said since this spring that if I was elected, what I would do first is seek funds from the Board of Supervisors to hire a full-time civil attorney to take care of those needs for the county. Look, that is not where my passion is, and it's not where my best skill set is to handle contracts and paperwork back and forth. I can be a resource for that person, but I think makes the most sense is to have somebody who's passionate about doing that sort of work, dedicated to the County Board of Supervisors, the Board of Health, et cetera, so that work has a very clear workflow. So when Ms. McDonough or Mr. Wickham has a question, they know who to call and they get a response immediately.
Thank you. Mr. Wickham, the original question was, how would you prioritize spending for the, coming from the Inflation Reduction Act? But you could also comment on this if you'd like.
Well, certainly the county attorney's office is very important. So I know we've talked about it, and you get a lot of people directing your attention here. If you're categorizing it as a dumpster fire right now, I firmly believe that those that were in the office potentially fanning the flames and causing difficulties, and that was you, Mr. Kirkendall. And then secondly, having Scott Nelson be our county attorney will just add more dysfunction. So while he is the same party as my party, when I look at the characters, there's a clear choice at the county attorney's office, and that's Sam Wooden. Specifically related to the new federal program, I also am not totally up to speed on that, but one of the things we could improve on is our ability to reduce our carbon footprint and to become more efficient. So I think that's one area that we haven't done enough of at the county, and I would certainly like to look at some of those initiatives that I know that are in their bill related to electric vehicles, related to changing out our fleet, making our buildings much more efficient. I thank you for the grace and the ability to add comments related to other questions. Appreciate that.
We need to make it exciting for the viewers. We don't have any recorder-specific questions yet. Please feel free to send them up. But we do have a question for the treasurer. What opportunities for growth do you see regarding the county's finances?
On that one, I have been working closely with our current treasurer, Denise Dolan, with our local banks, financial institutions, to make sure that we're getting the best rates that we can, but also providing that our money stays locally, because those are the citizens who are contributing to our county finances, are people who live here in Dubuque County. So what we try to do is invest them the best that we can. The county is not out there to do high-risk investments. We can do things such as CDs, T-bills, things with low risk, because we always want to make sure we're getting the best return, but at the same time, also supporting our local investment opportunities that are here within our community.
Thank you. So question for all the candidates again. This time we'll start with Mr. Lucy. Each of your offices, and we've talked about this a little, but have special tasks and separate duties, but you also do work together on a number of issues. So how would you work together, and what are some of the issues that you see as being important for you to work together well on? So again, we start with Mr. Lucy.
Well, certainly the treasurer's office, we'd work quite a bit together, I imagine, with all the things going on with the fees and everything going in there. And quite frankly, the position itself, I've had some coaching on it so far, and I've talked with a lot of people that work in the county offices right now, showing me the different things that go on there. But not being in that position, it's my understanding you're still trained by the office staff. They're the ones that have been there, like Carol for over 20 years. Andrea's been there many, many years. Got a few new people, Becky and Demetrius, and just lost someone else there recently. But I think just working together as a team and finding out the specifics. I'm more of the kind of leader, I don't want to come in and change things unless they need to be. I want to see how things work first what's working well, what can we improve on? Because I'm really good at finding systems and system improvements so we can make things flow a lot smoother. So I think working and communicating with each other is probably the number one thing. And that's probably the best thing, just communicate with each other, who's ever in all the offices there.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, one example I can think of is when I referenced digitizing all of our land records. When we did that, I mean, it's all land records. It's millions of images, going back to the 1880s. This was done predominantly to preserve our records so that they can't be lost to natural disaster, but it was also very beneficial for all county departments. The city and county assessors, mapping, GIS, auditor, zoning, veteran affairs, they all utilize the data that we put onto that website. So now instead of coming down and working out of our public terminals, they're able to do it from their computers at their desk. It's been incredibly beneficial for various departments to have that data on the public-facing website. It's also very beneficial for all of our partners in business. So realtors, banks, lenders, abstract companies, they all get to do this business from their office and not have to come in through the security, take off their belts, take off their watches, take off their jewelry, and come through security. They get to do it at their own home office or at their building, and it's been very appreciative. And now, I mean, we've got all of those military discharges. We got all those on the website. Now, that's not public facing. That's behind a wall that most folks can't get to, but we did give access to our VA office. So instead of the middle of the winter, they call over and say, hey, do you have a record for John Smith? And then they come over through the rain, through the snow, and come get that record. They just check it themselves, and they go ahead and print it off from their own computer in the old jail building.
Ms. McDonough?
I'm going to ask you to repeat the question.
Sure. So each of the offices have special tasks and separate duties, but you also work together on issues. Please name some, and how did they work out?
When we work together, I mean, each department interacts with the supervisors for budget purposes. In terms of, there are other elected officials and a multitude of department heads that are not in the room and not on the ballot. So, forging relationships with sheriff, executive director, administrator of Sunnycrest, zoning officials. The auditor is a key person, so I'm not exactly sure, when we work together, I'm not in your lane. I won't be inside the county attorney's office. John will tell you I don't frequent the recorder's office. We work together as needed to get the county business done. And as I began my conversation this evening, to be highly effective county government, we need to have good relationships with all department heads and with all of our other elected officials. So that's something that I think is a high standard. All of that needs to be worked on, but we have key things to get done. We do not have a human resources director. We do not have an executive director of the board of the county health department. We don't have a treasurer. It goes on and on and on. So there's a lot of building that has to be done in Dubuque County to work together and to get the business done for citizens. And we can do that.
Thank you. Mr. Wickham?
Well, one of the first and kind of obvious starting points, as some of my colleagues have mentioned these, is courthouse functions. And so we do all work together there, and we serve the community when they walk through the courthouse doors. And so we have to be on the same page related to levels of customer service, understanding what each and every department does. Probably the most dramatic example of the cooperation was during COVID, during the pandemic. So when you need your government functioning is when you're in a pandemic and when you're in a crisis. And I believe Dubuque County did as good a job as we can, and we got through it, and it wasn't 1 month, it was years. And working together with the sheriff's department to make sure that the inmates were taken care of, and along with the people that are working there. Doing the same thing with the care providers at Sunnycrest and the 100 residents that are there, working with courthouse offices, the treasurer, the recorder, the county attorney's office. We still had people that were coming into the courthouse. We still had employees in the courthouse, and we needed to cooperate and work together to do the best we could to provide safety measures and still provide public service. And so that's probably the greatest example, and one of the proudest times that I think Dubuque County staff, Dubuque County staff, elected officials, and and employees did to continue to serve and keep our government functioning during a very, very difficult time.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens.
Thank you. Just to kind of clarify, we do have a county treasurer. Denise Dolan is our county treasurer. Right now, the treasurer's office works very closely with all departments. We're in charge of taking in all the revenue from other departments and making sure those are put into the correct accounts as on a daily basis. So you're always in touch with someone at Sunnycrest or the recorder's office or any zoning department, health department, engineer's office. You're always making sure that you're in contact with all department heads. You have a good working relationship. Most people in the county, every department head I've run into is welcome to questions. Get things figured out, work them out. On a daily basis, I work with the auditor's office, making sure that everything is insured correctly and that nothing kind of seems to fall through the cracks. Regarding also with us, we deal with the Department of Transportation on a daily basis. So making sure that the DOT laws are followed, not just county that we have to look at, we have to look at other resources as well. We also deal with the Board of Supervisors when having to present anything that needs their approval. I have something going on Monday's meeting and I will have to present with them, and working with them and explaining to them is what they're looking for. So they guarantee that they'd like the knowledge to come along with what's being presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Our county attorney candidates have touched on this a little bit already, but if you could talk a bit more about how you would work with the other departments in the county, that would be great.
Yeah, a big part of working with the other departments in the county is providing leadership and getting your job done. That's what I was doing for 4 years in the county attorney's office. No one in Dubuque County tried as many criminal jury trials as I did during the time that I was in that office. No one got the kind of results that I did on cases. And all while that was happening, people were leaving that office in droves because of the leadership in that office. And many, many people made complaints to, for instance, the Board of Supervisors to say, hey, can we get some investigation here? Can you, Mr. Wickham, provide us with someone who can look into the conduct of the county attorney? And the answers that we got back time and time again was crickets. It's nothing. It's the county attorney's department. He can do whatever he wants in there. And that's the kind of leadership that we don't need in county offices, right? If you're going to be working together with other departments, that means doing your job. That means not abandoning people when they are asking for your help. And this was happening, like I said, years before any of this was public. A big reason that the issues in the county attorney's office became public was because of the lack of leadership shown by the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Mr. Wooden.
So if we're talking about working with others within our county government, what I'm kind of reminded of is this summer I went on a ride along with a police officer. And I remember the on-duty lieutenant who's kind of in charge of the shift complaining that, we have a theft case come up right now. We don't know who to contact at the county attorney's office to talk about that. And I imagine that there's other departments in our county, not just our city police department, that when they have a legal issue come up, they don't know who to contact at the county attorney's office. And that would be really frustrating. So for me, in working with other departments in the county and, of course, the city police department, it'd be about establishing really clear lines of communication so that they're not waiting on hold, asking who should I talk to, trying to run something up the chain. They go, oh, I need to talk to so-and-so, and it gets done.
Thank you. Our next question is again for everybody, and we're going to begin with Mr. Murphy. What do you hope to bring to your office going forward, and how do you plan to retain and attract good employees?
Yeah, when I'm looking at what my goals are for the future, I've got things that are in the works that are very important to me. And one of those steps is to get all of our vital records digitized. We currently have all of our indexes digitized, but not all of the vital records. I have been working with the state to identify a process moving forward to digitize all vital records, and it should be done within the next 12 to 24 months, and it will not be done at any county taxpayer expense. It will be done at the state expense. I also want to get our plats scanned into a larger format, so when you zoom in, you can make out all the numbers that you need to. That's something for our partners. They can better access them online instead of an 8.5 by 11 that they'd have to print out. They can get the much larger images. And the third thing is I've been communicating with state leaders to try and move forward to have a better online payment option for vital records specifically. Right now, if you want to go online and pay for a birth record, when it usually costs $15 to come into our office, to do it through the service that we have, it is only through the state, it doesn't come through the county. And when it goes through the state, it takes 6 to 8 weeks, and it costs about $28. It's about an 80% markup for this other entity. What we're working on now is a new option that would come directly to the county so that the revenue stays in the county, at least the portion of it that usually does. And we'd be able to do that for $16 to $18, and we'd have that out the same day in the mail. So it's a huge asset to our partners. That is those are my 3 goals moving forward. And I hope to touch base a little later on the campaign promises I made 4 years ago and that I've been able to keep those.
Thank you. Ms. McDonough?
As it relates to hiring qualified individuals, that is the department's responsibility. We supervise that. I will work with those departments, make those connections, fund the search that they need to do, but those are not decisions that I make. We have final hiring authority, but we are not in the interview room with candidates. We try to ask the right question to lead the county engineer to hire the skill set that we think is important. Ultimately, it's going to be, to a great extent, that gentleman's decision, in this case, a gentleman. My concern is, Mr. Kirkendall, with what you said there, I don't know that you understand the role of the county supervisors. We supervise all of the functions and primarily the budget. The situation in the county attorney's office is extremely complicated because who I would normally ask for legal advice is the county attorney. And when the county attorney won't leave the room to allow us to use other legal counsel, the voters, you're all kind of stuck. So November 8th can't happen quickly enough so we can all voice our opinions about who should take over that office.
Mr. Wickham?
Yeah, so.
And I'm sorry, just as I'm going to restate the question.
State the question, sure, you bet.
What do you hope to bring to your office going forward? And then there was also the part about retaining employees. So how do you plan to retain and attract good employees? It was a two-parter.
So Dubuque County is a service organization, and we have nearly 400 people, many of those full-time and a bunch of part-time as well, across a variety of different departments, of which the supervisors provide budgeting and oversight, and do have kind of the direct line reporting for a variety of different departments. So it is an important function that we do serve. In short, it's about making sure that you have the right person for the right job. And that is definitely the department head's responsibility and elected officials' responsibility, but we can set the tone and tenor for that. Generally, you want people that know that they can have an impact, know that their work is meaningful, and that they also know that they'll be compensated for that. And I think we've done that fairly, and some potentially a little over the top. I voted against a couple compensation increases that I thought were a hair high, too quick, too fast. But in short, you've got to let the employees know that they're there to serve the citizens. You've got to set the tone and tenor that we're here for that service and it's here for work, but we do respect your work and we will compensate you fairly for that. And hopefully at the end of the day, they can go home feeling that they've accomplished something. So if we can set that tone and tenor, I think we'll be on our way.
Ms. Steffens?
Thank you. The treasurer's office right now has basically, we have 8 full-time staff that are part of our union, and that is a big thing. We need to protect those workers and keep a full staff. We also have 4 deputies and 1 part-timer on our staff. I feel that the office needs to have more cross-training. People need to know more things. More people need to be more aware of what's going on in the office. We've seen in the last year that things can happen without warning, and some staff may not have known everything. So it's just making sure that if something would happen, everyone is aware of what goes on in the office. Also allowing for additional training for our other office staff and allowing them the time off to go to meetings, things like that. I've also attended different leadership things that keeping the communication lines open with your staff is a main component to keeping the staff happy, as well as being able to feel like you're open to their voice and their opinion in the office if they feel that they see something that should be changed. I look to serve them a lot by working with them on a daily basis and being part of their daily activities as treasurer.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkendall, you The question again is about what change or what you hope to bring to the office going forward and how to attract good employees. You can also respond to obviously anything else that's been said.
Thank you. Yeah, being a prosecutor is actually a great job, and working in the Dubuque County Attorney's Office historically has been something that people love to do. We had prosecutors who were in that office for 20 or 30 years at a time, and we've lost a lot of that over the last 4 years. So we don't have nearly as much institutional knowledge as we had, and we need to build that back up. We need to get that back. A big part of that is just having it function as a prosecutor's office should function. A prosecutor's office is actually a great place to work when everybody is pursuing truth and justice, working together, working as a team, protecting victims, and trying to hold people accountable for criminal conduct. That's a great thing to be a part of, and that's a reason I was so jealous about holding on to my job in that office. You know, people want to work in a place like Dubuque, and people want to work in that field. They just want to do it in a place where they know they're not going to be harassed and they're going to be respected. And so those are the things that we need to bring to that office: is professionalism and dedication to truth and justice amongst the people who are working there.
Mr. Whitten?
Rich is right when he talks about the history of the Dubuque County Attorney's Office being a welcoming place. I was an intern in that office back in 2009, and I found it to be an incredibly supportive and welcoming environment. And if elected, that's how we're going to attract and retain new good people, by having a welcoming and supportive environment. And the folks that I've worked with in my career, they've stood up and said, yeah, that's a person who stands by his people. That's a person who stands up for his clients and deeply cares about them. And if elected, I'm going to deeply care about the people in that office so that they know that when they go in front of a courtroom, I'm standing there with them. When they stand in front of a jury, I'm right there with them. When they have a tough legal argument, something they haven't handled before, I'm right there with them. On top of that, I adjunct up at the University of Loras College, I adjunct up at Loras College, and I've got relationships with a handful of professors up there, several of whom have complained to me, hey, if you're elected, we really need an undergraduate internship program. And I couldn't agree more. As a legal intern, I had a great experience, and I know that our social work majors, our psychology majors, our criminal justice majors would all greatly benefit and potentially become future employees through an undergraduate internship program in the office.
As a sociology professor at Loras College, I would like to remind you of sociology.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garut.
And we'll end the question with Mr. Lucy. What do you hope to bring to your office going forward, and how will you attain and attract good employees?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I'd bring 35 years of private sector experience. I'm got to say I'm somewhat surprised when I heard of the previous form, the exact same answer of how the forms are now digitized. I work with county recorders all over the country. I currently do that. And it's a standard across the country to have your forms digitized. I was surprised that it's happened so recently here. Nothing wrong with the staff there. I think as far as getting the staff here, what I see is just bringing professionalism, like you mentioned, respect and dignity, and being a contributing member of the team. Hats off to Carol for running down on a Friday night, probably after hours, to bring a marriage license. Why was Carol doing it? Is my only question. I've heard that the past recorders have done that. And if there was an emergency, sure, out of town or something, maybe they could call on a subordinate to do that. But I would want to do that and be a part. I think the office is open from 8 to 4:30. That's completely foreign to me. I don't understand stopping at 4:30. I typically work from about 7 to 6 daily. Last week I worked over the night shift as well from 5 to 8 a.m., handling situations all over the country. I bring a work ethic, and I think leading by the front and leading by example is how you retain, and having your team know that you're never going to ask them to do something you wouldn't be willing to do yourself.
Thank you. We now have a supervisor-specific question. So this time we'll begin with Mr. Wickham, since Ms. McDonough started the supervisor-specific questions last time. The question is, Dubuque will not make the 50% reduction in greenhouse gas by 2025. What can the county do to assist reaching this goal?
Well, probably the first big thing to understand is that, there's the city of Dubuque, and then there's 20 other cities, incorporated areas that we work with, in addition to the footprint that Dubuque County has. So the task is large, and, probably it starts with communicating with all 21 of those communities and those citizens and getting their buy-in and understanding of, the road ahead in reducing greenhouse gases and reducing our carbon footprint, being more efficient related to our energy use, those types of things. The city of Dubuque is very well capable and competent to lead those. Their budget's twice ours. They have a lot more city council members. They have a city manager. They have a sustainability director. And I'm confident that they can move forward in a positive way. Now, if they want to partner with us, I'm very open, but they haven't so far. And so I'd be very interested, not that we've asked either, it just hasn't occurred. So a partnership between the city and county to reach those reductions, I'd be very much open for and very interested in trying to put some of those initiatives forward.
Ms. McDonough, same question. How can we reach or assist in reaching the greenhouse gas reduction goal?
So again, that's the city of Dubuque's goal. I don't know that the county has that goal. One thing we could do is have conversation and make that a priority issue to address. We are working on environmental goals every day. That's something that this board, together with Supervisor Wickham, we have made that a priority. That is not something we've articulated. To the person who asked that question, I can tell you that there was conversation at pizza last night in Epworth. One of the things that I do as a supervisor when I'm there, and I'm sure Supervisor Wickham does as well, is to say, we're working on these things. What do you think? We talked about electric vehicle charging stations. Would Epworth be interested in leading on that? That wasn't my idea. That was conversation that came between a Democrat and a Republican who came to a conversation. So those conversations are occurring throughout the county. People are aware of the need that we have to work toward for resiliency, for sustainability, and our role is to lead on that. We could also do some of our own strategic planning with regard to that. Our departments have been asked to do those kinds of things with energy conservation, with geothermal, with solar panels, permeable pavers. The county has tried, and I think done a job of leading on that. So, we work with the cities. We cannot require them to do something just because we think it's a good idea.
And now we are moving to attorney-specific questions, and we'll start with Mr. Wooden. Are juvenile delinquency and child in need of assistance matters handled correctly in your office? And if not, what would you change?
I don't have a deep history of working with juvenile delinquents or China cases, and China stands for Child in Need of Assistance. It's typically involving the termination of someone's parental rights. I see Bridget Goldbeck because she's always my resource when those issues come up in my career. My understanding is currently Josh Vanderplu is primarily responsible for handling juvenile delinquency cases and China matters, and he has made a career of it. He's done it, I think, for 16 years in this and other jurisdictions. Without having the depth of knowledge that Josh does, I would have a hard time critiquing the work he's doing. The one thing that does concern me is the number of juveniles in our community who are waived up to the adult system. The adult system is a really tough place, and it's not really made for a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, except in extremely rare circumstances. So I would take a different approach to say, look, when children are committing crimes, 15, 16, 17, we're holding off on the adult system when possible.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkendall, can you talk to us about delinquency and child in need of assistance matters?
Yeah, I think oftentimes when those cases are in the county attorney's office, they're being handled correctly. Josh does do a good job, and I've threatened him before with moving him into adult prosecution because he's a good attorney and he could do that. But there is an issue that goes beyond the cases that actually get to the county attorney's office, and it's one that comes up a lot when you talk to school teachers or law enforcement or people in hospitals and other places where you have juveniles who are repeatedly assaulting someone, committing some sort of oftentimes violent criminal conduct, and they're not being detained, they're not being arrested, they're not being taken in because the system won't allow it until it's happened 4 or 5 times. I think that sort of thing needs to be looked at and addressed, and we need to have actual numbers about it. I don't think if you went to the county attorney's office today, they'd be able to tell you how many cases there are like that, but we should have a good handle on that, and we should be able to put resources into identifying people who are repeatedly having issues, violent assaults and things like that, and putting more of a spotlight on the parents in those situations. I think we do have a lot of tools that we can hold parents accountable when they're not properly supervising their children. And so there is, I think, more work to be done beyond handling the cases that actually make it to the county attorney's office.
We have a question now for everybody. And it's not one that necessarily speaks to your office, but it is a question or a topic that's been getting a lot of attention lately. And voters would like to know where you each stand on Public Measure 1, which is the Iowa Constitutional Amendment proposing that proposal about gun laws and what we would do. And we are set to start with Ms. McDonough.
Thank you. I'd like to go back and talk about juvenile issues in another format, and this is a pocketbook issue, so it affects your taxes. Juvenile detention centers, supervisors sit on those governing boards, and I currently sit on both of them, and I have asked the question and made inquiry as to the numbers of our young folks who are being placed in juvenile detention. Those bills are escalating. And by my oversight, I was able to save the county $20,000 in my second year as a supervisor simply by reading the claims and recognizing that they were processing a higher billing rate than the contract allowed. And we reset that, of course. And your office, the county attorney's office, did provide assistance with that, though I was definitely the lead. So I do have a concern about juvenile issues, and part of this is not just your office, but also the judicial department, right? So that department weighs in on where those kiddos go as well. So you think about juvenile offenders going to Eldora, Iowa, to a very large juvenile detention center, far away from family, far away from school, in great mental distress. It's something I would like to have the next county attorney have empathy and look into that. I don't disagree that your assistant county attorney does a good job, but there's more there to uncover, in my opinion. As to Measure 1, I have asked multiple.
Maybe next time. Mr. Wickham, what are your thoughts on Public Measure 1?
Well, in general, it's difficult to comment on a lot of things that we don't have control of, and so, from a podium here and elected of office, we have the same rights and responsibilities as many citizens, and that's just one vote. That said, I believe we have a Second Amendment of the Constitution, and that is protected, and I believe that's where it should start and stop. Related to the Second Amendment, I don't believe we need to have additional conditions at the state of Iowa.
Ms. Steffens?
Thank you. In regards with the treasurer's office, that's not something that is a stand that we have. But as far as the Public Measure 1, I agree with Mr. Wickham that we have a Second Amendment, and that is something that we should respect, and that we should also, regarding guns for anyone, people are owners of them. Most people who have them hopefully are respectful with them, but sometimes the ones that are legally doing it correctly are usually the ones who are punished for the ones who do this illegally. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkendall?
Yeah, the county attorney's office does actually deal with a lot of issues regarding firearms and the right to own firearms. What is interesting about Public Measure 1 is not just that it mirrors the Second Amendment, which it does for small part, and I think that would be a good and just thing to have a constitutional amendment to the Iowa Constitution that says we're going to have an individual right to bear firearms, I think that would be perfectly fine. I think Public Measure 1 goes too far, though. It does include the strict scrutiny language, which is putting a judicial standard into our Constitution, which causes all sorts of potential havoc. If you look at other states, I think there's only 3 other states that have a similar constitutional provision. You have people like felons who now want their firearms back, and under strict scrutiny, they might have an argument. You have people accused of domestic abuse or subject to a domestic abuse no contact order who now are able to sue and say, under a strict scrutiny standard, I'm going to be able to get firearms back. And as county attorney, as someone who's handled a lot of domestic abuse prosecutions, that's the last thing in the world that I want. I don't think it, and recent news from very close to Dubuque would suggest that it's a very bad idea to let people who are, currently in a domestic abuse case have access to firearms. So, in general, I would advise against approving Public Measure 1. I think it creates havoc for our court systems and for law enforcement if we're going to now open it up to the possibility of other people being able to get firearms who are currently prohibited from possessing them.
Mr. Wooden?
I got my first BB gun when I was 4 years old. I've had guns ever since. I hunt every fall and most springs, and I agree with every word Rich Kirkendall just said. We shouldn't be putting judicial standards in our Constitution with words like strict scrutiny. I agree with what Supervisor Wickham said, that we've got a Second Amendment, and it does a good job of protecting our individual rights. I don't have a problem with adding an individual right to our state constitution, but I think it goes too far, especially considering that Iowans have a constitutional right to assert a violation of their constitutional rights in this state. So, to Rich's point, a felon who gets accused in the state of having a gun could then say, well, this statute is unconstitutional, and I am suing the state to for damages, for an injunction, and to get my guns back. And I don't think that's something we want in Iowa.
Thank you. Mr. Lucy?
Yeah, just thinking about arms and being in the military myself in the past here and being trained with all kinds of weapons there. I guess that just brings me back almost to the work ethic part of it. Is not just with weapons, but serving. And I kind of go with Ann's there. Just before I get too deep into my personal thoughts on that position, I've definitely used a lot of weapons, but serving in the Guard and having that work ethic, I think that's one thing I want to circle back to is the work ethic of what I think this office needs. Since this is not a legislative position as the recorder, we don't really have any influence on that. I want to talk more about the work ethic that I brought to various positions throughout wherever I've been. I worked, just so people know, again, the 4:30 out or 3:30, whenever someone leaves the office, is foreign to me. Worked third shift at the PAC on cleanup, and then went directly to my first shift job. I did that for months throughout college. I always had at least 2 or 3 jobs when I was working, and I think bringing that kind of leadership, regardless of your position on guns, is what this office needs, and that's really what I've, in my conversations with people that work throughout the county in the office there, and people that have either worked there now or retired, have told me that's really what we need is someone that's going to lead by example and be a productive and contributing member of that office there. And that's really what I want to bring. As far as to get into the heart of the issue with the gun. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy, we end with you.
Okay, everybody up here's talked about leadership, but then some of us sit here and take these weak, little, cheap political shots. My goal is to promote my staff. I want to put them in front because they do an awesome job. Every day of the week, that's my goal. But if you want to know what I do, well, here you go. Let's have at it. Last Friday night, I got a screenshot right here. You can look at all these text messages from somebody that's an officiant that's going to perform a wedding, and somebody signed on the wrong line. So what I do, after I picked up my daughter and her friends from a high school football game, I drove down to the courthouse. I got that document. I then cruised over to her house, and at approximately, let's see, I'm just pulling into the subdivision at 10:21. She replies, "Okay, you are the bestest." So yes, I do that all day long, but my staff's phenomenal, and they do it just as much as I do. I have another one where I had a call from somebody that needed a birth certificate. We got it for them, a non-certified copy, because they were getting on their 30th wedding anniversary, getting on a cruise. And what did I do? Because I wasn't 110% sure that that was going to work, and they were getting on that flight that cruise the next day. What did I do? I gave him my cell phone number. That number is 563-513-9064. Feel free to write it down. If there's ever a time that we can be of assistance, I will gladly drop whatever I'm doing to go help. I've done that numerous times. It's one of the first things I did when I came into office was to send it out to every county employee because I don't want somebody missing out on a cruise ship. I don't want somebody missing out on a sporting event because they couldn't get a hold of me. And I support the Second Amendment.
I'm going to promote the League of Women Voters. We do put out a pamphlet with ways that you can contact all of our elected officials every year. You can find them around town. I think I just gave a double thumbs up on TV, so that makes me feel very cool. So another question that, again, doesn't have to do with particular offices, but is a topic that is important to League and to people generally that we'd like to hear your thoughts on. Election security and confidence in election results has become a concern that we've not faced historically. Do you have any doubts as to Dubuque County's election results and or our ability to have safe, secure elections? And we begin with Mr. Wickham.
Yeah, great question. It certainly has been bannered around over the last multiple years with little or no evidence that there ever was an issue or any election integrity issues. In Dubuque County, I can tell you, and my colleagues could echo this that are currently in office, the process that we have is very secure, it's very transparent, and it is as good as it gets in my vantage point. It's led by Jenny Hillary, who's our elections deputy. Eric Dragato is the auditor. He also oversees that. We have numerous employees that help during the election season and others. I know and I see the voting systems and how they're secure, where they're stored. We talk about the security, not necessarily in public, and know that those are protected. And then if you look at the process after that, the election results, go through their process. They're verified or certified by the Board of Supervisors. They're sent to the Secretary of State, who happens to be a different party than our county auditor. Doesn't seem to matter. Paul Pate, as the Secretary of State, seems to say Iowa's voting system is really good as well. And I think that gives me the confidence to know that each and every time that you go to vote, your vote counts, and it will be accurately counted, and it will be included in those election totals.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens.
Thank you. I believe that our election security is secure. Kevin Dragato has gone over numerous protocols that the county auditor's office follows. They make sure that they get all the information they need to the voters themselves, making sure that it's out there in a right amount of time. They also make sure that it can be an enjoyable experience for people. Sometimes voting doesn't always bring out the best in some people, depending on their views. But they've tried to bring some fun and enjoyment to voting and trying to get more people interactive. There are different things that they've tried to implement in the county to try to, make sure that people know where they can vote, making things more feasible, and also just making things, people kind of trying to put everybody at ease when it comes to everybody's questioning on the voting security.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kirkendall, what are your thoughts on election security in Dubuque County?
Yeah, I think it's right and proper for people to be concerned about election security. I think the idea that there would be any tampering with or fraud in the course of an election would be striking at the heart of our representative democracy. So it's good for people to be concerned about it. From my own personal experience, and this is just running a campaign without a political party, I'm very confident in the abilities of the auditor and of Ms. Hillary. I think they do a great job.
Mr. Wooden?
I have full confidence in the auditor's office to run a safe and secure election. Period.
Mr. Lucy?
Yeah, I think voter ID is a great thing. I definitely appreciate having that. I know personally Nick down at the office and Miss Hillary as well. Yeah, just great people, and they have made it fun. I've seen some of their posts there. They're real good people, and I have no questions about it here in Iowa.
Mr. Murphy?
I fully trust the election results in Dubuque County. I fully trust them in Iowa. I fully trust them in the United States. And I think it's foolish to question the results of the last presidential election, as some have. Now I'm going to use a little bit of that time to finish the story that I didn't get to finish because I saw that time come up. That gentleman that jumped on that cruise ship, he joked because he worked in county government. And he said, I've never seen someone in county government jump through so many hoops like you guys did. You know, John, I knew that you contacted the cruise line to say, hey, is this going to be sufficient? If it's not, we'll overnight the certified record by getting his brother to come in and sign for it. We were jumping through every hoop we had to make sure he got it the next day. He laughed, and I told him the truth. I'm like, hey, man, I live for this stuff. The typical transactions in the recorder's office might not be too exciting if you want the truth. But when you get an opportunity to legitimately impact a customer's day, a week, a month, or even their year, I'll be there for you. That was a friend's reference, by the way. But I gave out my personal cell number because I do not want people to miss these types of events. That is absolutely personal to me. I'll write it down. I'll say it again if it would help. But, you know, slightly inconveniencing myself or my staff and paying a little bit of overtime is not a concern of mine to get things done correctly. That day that we referenced where Carol ran down, I mean, I was super proud of her because she's a very shy individual. But yeah, I happened to be on a construction site with my wife and kids and knew that I couldn't get it there in time for the couple to get married on time. And that's why she went down.
Ms. McDonough, election security?
Yes, our local elections are secure. The national elections, I believe, are secure. This question is for our opponent, Wayne Kennecker. That's who this question is for. He does not believe national elections are secure. And it's the Dubuque County Patriots. I was rude and spent my time trying to search on their Facebook page. They have promoted that there's the movie about the mule and all of the folks who are carrying the, I mean, it's you know, Q&A, it's QAnon. That's the position that they assert. And that is frightening to seniors, that our elections may be insecure. We asked him that question at the Eagle Point meeting that we had together, a joint meeting. And he was willing to say local elections are fine. He's been elected on local ballots, so it must work. But when it gets to national, he's not sure that it works at all. So that's not a question for us. We know through the great hard work of our county auditors team and our electioneer, Jenny Hillary, Nick Fish, there's great people doing this. Our elections are secure, and that is some oversight that supervisors provide. But I would encourage everyone to check out the Dubuque County Patriots. They do not believe that. And that is an essential element of, in my opinion, the ability to stand for public office.
We're going to go back into position-specific questions. So for our Trinity candidates, could you describe your relationship with members of the law enforcement community? And we're going to begin with Mr. Kirkendall.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the first things I did when I came back to Dubuque and joined the county attorney's office was just get in my car and drive to the law enforcement offices in the various small towns in the county. And I did that because that's what we did in the Army. You were expected to go out and meet with the commanders of all the different units you had, meet them in their footprint, see what's going on, understand the situation on the ground. And I remember getting to Dyersville and talking with Brent Schrader, and he was looking at me a little funny and saying, I've never had an assistant county attorney who's actually come to my office. And that's terrible. It shouldn't be that way. We should have everyone in that office should have that relationship with law enforcement where they know you to look at you. They know who to call when there's a problem. We have people who have clear designations about what cases they're handling. And in my 4 years, I was able to develop that with law enforcement. I was the guy who law enforcement could look at and say, he's going to take my case seriously. Even if it gets dismissed at the end of the day, I'll know why. I'll have communication throughout, and I can have that back and forth discussion with law enforcement. Law enforcement will trust that if I need more work done on a case, it's because we actually need more work. It's not going to sit in a black box for months at a time, and that's the kind of value I want to instill in the rest of the office too. Law enforcement should know right away who the attorney is working on their case, and they should have that open line of communication back and forth throughout the process. They should never be finding out how a case was resolved through seeing it in the paper or hearing it through the grapevine. That should be coming from us.
Thank you. Mr. Wooden.
So as a criminal defense lawyer for the last 6 years. Obviously, my relationship with law enforcement is more adversarial in a courtroom setting. That said, I go to great lengths to ensure that when I'm talking with an officer in a courtroom setting, I'm showing them respect that I would want to be shown to me. Even to the chagrin of my client, one time I apologized to an officer on the stand for having been too rough with him during a deposition. In order to try to foster a closer bond with law enforcement, as I mentioned earlier, I've gone on ride-alongs. I'll go on another one this month. I've met with the unions, both of the sheriff and police department, and I've taken to just stopping when I see a police car on the side of the street to introduce myself and say, hey, I'm Sam Wooden. I'm the guy running for county attorney. Hope we're working together soon. So I'm going out of my way to try to make sure that, I'm not the big scary defense lawyer, but that they know that I'm going to be on their team. I'm going to be there to help them and support them in everything that they're trying to do to make our community safer.
Thank you. And supervisors, beginning with Ms. McDonough, what opportunities do you see for promoting conservation efforts while balancing that with personal property rights?
I think that the Conservation Board has the right, and that's their role, to suggest to the county supervisors that we buy land that is available for purchase. I will let Supervisor Wickham, who's on the Conservation Board, give you those specifics. I'm sure that I probably have inaccuracies in that. With regard to private property rights, the greatest danger right now is the carbon pipeline and the use of eminent domain that is being allowed to take private property from farmers and give it to for-profit industry to chase green credits for the carbon pipeline. That carbon pipeline comes to Dyersville and leaves. But that is a position that I have taken strongly. We need to have an ordinance that prohibits that kind of conduct happening in our county. So that would be my concern about private rights and public right with eminent domain. Again, I would defer to Jay to talk about acquisition of private property by conservation.
Yes, I am on the Conservation Board, so I was the first supervisor appointed on that, and I would like to thank my colleagues, Supervisor McDonough and Supervisor Potoff, for voting me on that
Supervisor
board.
Baker.
Was it Baker?
Super Baker, yeah.
Supervisor Baker. Okay, thank you. Potoff gets no credit for that. So I enjoy conservation and outdoor activities, and so that was my passion to be on that individual board. One of the key takeaways, I think, over the last 6 years is that we have in conservation acquired 3 new properties, 3 new parks. And so the Proving Grounds at John Deere, the McCarthy property near Cascade, and then the Valentine property, which is now called Bowstring, near Bernard as well. 2 out of those 3 were gifted, so we did not have to spend those. The Valentine property we did purchase, and it was a scenario related to a bridge. So in short, Conservation Board, and I would never support eminent domain of any circumstance in those environments. And in short, we don't have the pocketbooks to compete with private ag or private landowners to buy these funds. So we might have a few hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that doesn't get you much anymore. It takes millions of dollars to create large land parcels for conservation. But we strive to be a good neighbor. So along the Heritage Trail, we've got a lot of neighbors. Along our parks, we have a lot of neighbors. And the Conservation Board and the conservation staff, led by Brian Preston, strives to be a good neighbor to make sure we do just that.
Thank you. So question for everyone, beginning with Ms. Steffens. Should your county position be affiliated with a political party? Why or why not?
I've taken this stance quite a few times. I don't think what the treasurer's office does and how it serves the community should be part of a political party. I think it should be a nonpartisan party run basically on knowledge, experience, and your ability to do the job.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkendall.
The county attorney's office is about faithful execution of the law. And that's not a partisan issue at all. I don't think it benefits anyone to have the county attorney as a partisan office. It actually inhibits the proper functionality of the office, because you tend to have people of the other party then getting ginned up to get that other guy out of there. He's not part of my party, so let's work against that. And I don't have a lot of patience for that. I don't have a lot of patience for the national political conversation in general, where it's just Democrats and Republicans yelling at each other across the room. So I think it makes perfect sense for this year to be the year that the county attorney's office, at least, is nonpartisan.
Mr. Wooden?
So whether or not the county attorney's office should be a partisan office is not my decision. It's the legislature's decision, and they've decided it is. I'm running as a Democrat because I am a Democrat. I'm not going to hide it. I'm proud of it. So whether or not it should be a partisan office, I don't know, but it is, and I'm a Democrat. So thank you.
Mr. Lucy?
Sure. Yeah, as an unaffiliated candidate, I don't see this as a legislative position in any way, and I don't think it should be partisan. And when you drive around town, it may surprise you or maybe confuse you to see my signs for support along with a whole bunch of Democrat signs or a whole bunch of Republican signs or out by there myself, because I'm here to support and to serve the county. That's what I'm looking to do. To bring, as Angela said, it should be more about our experience and 35 years of business experience and working with people and communicating with people for common goals and being able to listen to the staff that's in the office and find out really what's the biggest concerns, what's the direction that is going to make the most impact to the people throughout the county. Doesn't matter about party. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, I like the fact that we're elected because it creates additional accountability to each of us, that we are on the ballot every 4 years. I think that's important, so that if there comes a time that I'm not working 40-plus hours every week and I'm not doing those things, then yes, it'd be fair to make me accountable to that and to look at other options. So I like the fact that we're elected, I really do. As far as it being partisan, I think the last person I took up to the mapping department, because he had some questions, happened to be wearing a big red Trump hat. He and I hit it off, talked a whole bunch of personal stuff in the elevator. It was enjoyable. And a couple of security guards even gave me a hard time, like, oh, I can't believe a Democrat could do that. It's one of those that I don't think it interferes with our job a whole heck of a lot either way. And I haven't seen it from the treasurer's office. I haven't seen it from, frankly, any of the offices other than, on occasions, the board. And that's because you guys drive some policy, and that's to be expected.
So then how do you feel about that, Supervisor? So Ms. McDonough, should the supervisor positions be associated with political party?
Well, they are. That's not something I'm going to get to change. And I feel like we've covered some of this territory already. I am a Democrat. I was an independent and needed to register as a Democrat to run for office 4 years ago when I beat a Republican incumbent. So, at the local level, some people see it as strategic. Some people see it as identity. I think the job and how you perform the job is the critical measure. And, our cell phones at the supervisor level, our political party is listed on the website. Other candidates don't have political party. Other elected offices on the website don't have political party behind their name, but I believe the supervisors continue to do that. I think statewide, somehow that's a feeling that it's vitally important. But honestly, many counties, everyone's a Republican to run for political office. You must be a Republican if you think you're going to get a chance to be elected. It's not about the quality of the candidate, it's just checking a box.
Mr. Wickham?
So specifically answering the question, I would like to have more nonpartisan positions in local government, specifically the county attorney and the sheriff's office. Anyone that can arrest you and then assist in your detainment in jail, I just don't think it makes any sense to have them be listed as a party. Related to supervisors, you can make some case for that, but generally speaking, I would like to see all these positions be nonpartisan. That said, as Sam mentioned, that's up to the state government, and that's controlled by one party, has been for a lot of years. So that's the governor, the state house, the Senate, and then many of the other county officials, the majority of them across the state of Iowa, or that party. So they have the choice, and they certainly can make those changes, but usually that's the last time a party in power would, kneecap themselves, so to speak, with a new change. So I don't anticipate that anytime soon. The good thing I will mention is very few occasions it comes up when I deal with citizens of Dubuque County in my role. So if you go on Facebook and if you turn on any one of the news channels, you're going to get an earful. But in my day-to-day workings with citizens and elected officials and other community members, it doesn't really come up. So I'm really proud and really pleased to report that generally it's not an issue. It's an issue for a very small few, but most people in Dubuque County are really good about it.
Thank you. We're going to start again with a question for county attorneys, and Mr. Kirkendall, you'll be answering this question first. Will you support an independent investigation into the deaths of people happening inside the Dubuque County Jail?
I would support investigations into deaths in the Dubuque County Jail. I don't know that there's an overriding emergent need right now for some sort of outside investigation generally. I think every death in the Dubuque County Jail is concerning and requires investigation, but that's something I feel like the county attorney's office should have some more involvement in that, frankly, and we should have more involvement in the training of law enforcement. We should have more involvement in what goes on at the jail, frankly, and a lot of the time the county attorney's office is just completely separate from that. I think in order to have a better idea of what's happening at the jail, you have to have a better relationship with your law enforcement officers and with the sheriff's department in particular. And I think having that relationship gives us more clarity about that kind of stuff. I don't think there's a need at this point to bring in an outside investigator for a whole series of death investigations or anything like that.
Thank you. Mr. Whitten?
It seems to me we've got enough independent investigations going on, and I think the county attorney's office can handle investigating if there is a death in the county jail. So I would take it as my job to be leading that investigation if elected, and would not hope not to seek outside counsel to assist with that.
And a supervisor question, starting with Mr. Wickham. Dubuque County is one of the few remaining Iowa counties to maintain a county home. Would you make changes in how Sunnycrest is run?
Yeah, so that related to having basically assisted living at Sunnycrest. So we have an intellectual disabilities unit and then a retirement home for those that are of low income levels. About 100 residents there. It's a great facility if you ever get the chance to have a tour or possibly meet those individual residents when they're out and about in the community doing their fun things, whether they're going to work or whether they're going down to Heritage Pond to do some fishing. It's a real good experience to be with them. So I'm very proud that Dubuque County has that resource and that we have made that commitment. It is one that does cost the county millions of dollars each year. The good news is over 80% of that is paid by federal government, by Medicaid. And that provides jobs and care for our individual citizens. So Sunnycrest to me is very well run and a vital part of the community. And at this point, I would not change anything.
Ms. McDonough?
I would agree with all that Supervisor Wickham said. We have the same position regarding, I think, the admiration and the experience that we have when we do interact with residents of that facility. It's a family, and when I mail birthday cards to people who work at Sunnycrest, I thank them for the care that they provide for our county family, because someone in this room will have someone who's a family member now, currently, or in the past who resided at Sunnycrest. It's something to be tremendously proud of. It also exists with a unique wrinkle. The building itself is owned by the hospital trustees. You can vote for them on your ballot as well. So the trustees own the building, the county provides the operation. So it's a unique blend, and I think that has allowed that facility to survive and thrive. It certainly does cost taxpayers money between the trustees levy and the county support. It can come in, it's usually under $3 million, but it's combined between two levies. So that's the reality of Sunnycrest, and all the door knocking I've done in 4 years plus. Not one citizen has told me that it isn't appropriate once they understand the facts and once they understand the financial stewardship and oversight that the Board of Supervisors provide.
Thank you. All right, so our last audience question of the evening, we're going to begin with Mr. Wooden, and it is for everybody. Community Solutions of Eastern Iowa has requested $200,000 to house 24 homeless people over the winter. Is there a better way to address homelessness in Dubuque County?
Boy, I hope there's a better way to address homelessness in Dubuque County. I'm not sure I'm the person who has the answer for how to do that, but when I see folks in town who don't have a place to go, it breaks my heart. And I'm not sure that the county attorney can do anything about it, but I'll certainly be an ally in trying to find that solution.
Thank you. Mr. Lucy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the homeless folks and have conversations with some that I've known, I guess, growing up there too, and know them by name. Not going to mention them here, but it's a rough path for people. Different situations, different choices in life. There's some really good outreach places we have in town right now. I know with MIMS down here at the shelter and everything, and I know when we go out, if we have extra food at functions and all, we want to take that stuff and drop it off there. I have not looked into the homeless situation. I know they've got some different, some functions just recently coming up, and another one I think next week talking about that too. So I think to get more involved with that would be a good idea. I think just showing compassion. When you see these people out in the street, people would see Sammy out there for years, kind of praying and doing his thing. Yeah, you know him, right? Yeah. And Mike, I know down at the parking ramp, I used to see him all the time. We'd have conversations. Just having some compassion and talking to the people, and if they need some food or something to help out a little bit, a lot of us would leave a little extra, where we knew they'd be. I think just treating people with dignity and respect is a big thing there. Maybe ask them questions. What do they need? I think that'd be a place to start.
Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm, the appropriate one to ask specifically about Community Solutions of Eastern Iowa, but, I think I'm going to echo what both of these gentlemen have said in regards to homelessness in Dubuque, and it's definitely an issue, but, as a potential recorder, that's not going to be something that we address.
You won't be buying property, right? Yeah.
But that said, I can tell you that I've spent a fair number of hours through the years at the Dubuque Air Labor Harvest, where it's a completely volunteer-driven organization that assists people with food on a monthly basis with a food giveaway. That's typically when I'm helping out. And I am constantly reminded when I go about how prevalent that poverty is in Dubuque. There's faces, names, people that you would recognize that you would never guess are living in poverty, and they're coming through. And we had to do a kind of an audit to explain how much your income is. Ask a lot of personal questions. How many children live in your home? And when we did that, I saw a lot of numbers that were very surprising. That you're looking at homes where there might be 3-4 kids living there, and they're living off of $18,000 or $20,000 or $24,000 a year, and it's very difficult. So I think we all need to be reminded as to how prevalent poverty is in Dubuque. So,
Ms. McDonough.
Homelessness is very much an issue in this community, and it is primarily in the city of Dubuque. The other areas of the county do not report that being a need that they have in my conversations with those folks. That isn't to say that they don't have double ups and they don't have children who live in situations that may be insecure. I have personally participated in the Homeless Advisory Coalition many months, many years, and have worked with homeless situation through the Red Basket Project, through the McDonough Foundation. I've also participated in the Point in Time, twice a year, homeless prevention specialists and Dubuque law enforcement go out to the various camps and actually determine who's there, age, demographics, offer services. I have done that. So it is a top concern of mine. CS Community Solutions, which is part of ECIA, they have been before us. They did receive an ARPA grant. When they came to us, they weren't even sure what it was that they wanted us to maybe do. Funding is shifting fast and furiously what funding sources are for this. This is an exceptional, this is the issue where the county and the city could work together, but it is in the city of Dubuque. We need, I would say we need the city to lead on this. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Wickham.
I would echo that as far as, housing and the housing department. The city of Dubuque has that, and they hold the federal contract for housing as well for a majority of Dubuque, and so I'm happy to partner with them. As Supervisor McDonough had mentioned, we did provide funding for various programs through American Rescue Funds. We also do provide fundings for preventative homeless and those people who are at the poverty level through our general assistance, through Veterans Affairs, also through the Liberty Recovery Center as well for low housing. I know the people at the Mission on Main Street, their leadership and their staff care tremendously about those people that are on the streets and need their services and need those beds. And I also understand that those are at a shortage. So it might be an issue that we have to come together on with our partners and our community partners and provide some additional brain power and funding to continue maybe on a solid path. I travel the United States frequently over my years, and Dubuque generally has, I think, comparatively done a good job related to serving those that have those strong needs and housing needs. Now, I believe we're under more pressure than we have been in the past, but now's the time to maybe get together and address it and see what we can do to help get ahead of the problem.
Thank you. Ms. Steffens.
Thank you. In regards with the treasurer's position, we do assist people with low income and elderly credits on their property tax, trying to help them figure out if they qualify for reduced in their taxes. Sometimes it takes them bringing in their paperwork, sitting it down with me. I had a lady today, I worked very quickly and very efficiently to try to help her get with, see if she fits within the guidelines. These people, they make just over what they need to, and they're just getting by, which is very sad to see. I mean, they work all their lives, and that's what they have. It's hard to see some people on the streets and being homeless and things, but we've never had to, fortunately, have to walk in their shoes. So giving them a greeting, talking to them like that was stated, is something that is good and hopefully beneficial to their mental health and well-being as well. But just treating people with kindness, no matter what their financial situation is what we're here to do.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkendall.
Thank you. Yeah, homelessness, not always tied to mental health, but oftentimes it is. And I think that's where it kind of intersects with what the county attorney's office does on a regular basis. And I do think it's important that the county attorney's office is a good partner with organizations that are trying to address homelessness or trying to provide more tools for treating mental health and providing more services for mental health people. A lot of the times what that boils down to, though, is the county attorney's office being competent in prosecuting crime. Because if you're going to talk about a mental health diversion program or any sort of other program that's aimed at some result other than incarceration or jail for someone with a mental health crisis, the alternative has to be that the county attorney's office is competent and will competently present a case to a jury if necessary and get a conviction if you're going to convince someone to go through all the steps that they need to go through to treat their mental health, to see providers, to attend groups, to be on medications, and to report to some kind of probation officer. So being a good partner and being a credible prosecution office are kind of the important things for the county attorney's office in that respect.
Thank you. So beginning with Mr. Lucy, we'd like to ask each of you if there's a question that you would like to ask your opponent this evening, whether they are here or not. We'd also like to ask you to be brief because we are starting to run out of time. But so
Assume we get to answer too.
yeah, I think we decided yes.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yes, a minute for responses, maybe. Yeah.
No, I don't have any questions.
All right.
That was easy.
Yeah. You got a buy.
One question I would have is, I have not met you before, previous to tonight. Don't know a lot about you, but you naturally do a little bit of research. I'm sure you know a little bit about me, and I know a little bit about you. So one question I would ask is, Any chance you could help me volunteer coach for Roosevelt Middle School wrestling this year?
Well, I would like to. Unfortunately, I'm already going to be assisting at University of Dubuque. So, yeah, I apologize. But I like to help the kids. I did coach some high school when I was in North Carolina. I coached up at senior high and stuff too. But yeah, I would like to work with you on a great program to build wrestling because it really drives a lot of good, I think, a work ethic that people have. And it really teaches you to set goals, achieve those. I think wrestling is a great sport, builds a lot of character. Yeah, did well with it.
I second that.
Ms. McDonough?
So there are two opponents who are not here in the room. The two Republicans are not here. Doran Bush is a neighbor from the city of Asbury. We might ask him if he can describe the difference between county and city. That would be good for Mr. Doran to describe. Mr. Kennecker is not here as well. He's the mayor of Sageville. They do not levy municipal taxes. And I think the question for him we've already addressed, which is, someone asked it, do you believe in fair elections? I'm not a fool. I realize that Jay and I are both on the ballot. I do not honestly consider you an opponent. I consider you a colleague. I wish this gentleman is to be reelected. I hope you wish that for me. We are in the process of doing many good things. My question to you, well, I don't even know if we can do this because of quorum. I was just going to ask if you are committed to doing strategic planning, those kinds of things we started before COVID and we need to get back to. That COVID interrupted some planning that we were doing about high priorities for the county to set. During the passage of time, not only did COVID happen, but we have a new board. So that would be my only question for Jay.
Okay, and then you have a minute to respond.
I mentioned this to the TH and a few others in public. I support your candidacy and hope for 4 more years. Related to other items that we'll do together, we'll do that another time, and we can actually talk about that officially on Monday or the next Monday after it if we'd like to. Related to the questions, my vantage point is we report to the citizens of Dubuque County. The citizens of Dubuque County get to ask the questions.
Ms. Steffens, do you have questions for your opponent who is also not here this evening?
I guess the only question I would have to ask is basically what his knowledge of our daily operations of our office are, if he understands what the treasurer's office actually does. Thank you.
Mr. Kirkendall?
Yeah, I would have some questions for Scott Nelson if he were here. He's made a lot of kind of bold claims about having done hundreds of jury trials. I did 35 jury trials over the course of the last 4 years, and including a year of COVID in there. But that was a breakneck pace. I had a span where I did 5 jury trials in the space of 6 weeks, and I don't think anybody else in Dubuque County has ever done that. I don't think Scott Nelson has ever done that. I don't think he's done hundreds of jury trials. So I would love to see him talk about that, and also his claim that civil prosecution is really just the same thing as criminal prosecution. That does not strike me as obvious in any way. So I would love to hear him talk more about that. For Mr. Wooden here, I guess what I would like to know is, what do you think you have learned from the people in the county attorney's office over the last 4 years?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. One thing that I think has really impressed me about the county attorneys, the people that work in there every day, is that they go into it with an attitude that Rich has talked about, seeking truth and justice. And one thing I've learned is that there's a lot of ways to seek truth and justice, some of which I approve of and some of which I don't. But I've also learned that you can lose cases based on an inability to fully connect with a client. And I've learned from my losses to Rich. I have learned from my losses to other attorneys in that office, and that's how I get better. So I've learned some humility in the courtroom thanks to that office, and I'm sure I will continue to learn from that office if elected or if not.
And do you have questions for your opponent?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's an audience question or if it was the League of Women Voters question, But the one question I would want to know from Mr. Nelson is, as it pertains to it, attracting and retaining good employees and mentoring young attorneys. I'm curious what experience you've had with that, given that you've been a sole practitioner for 17 years, haven't been able to find a law partner, haven't been able to find a law associate, haven't taken on interns. And I'm curious what sort of experience you have teaching and training young lawyers.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions for Rich. I've known Rich for 6 years. We generally get along with one another, so I got nothing for him.
He knows better than giving me rebuttal time.
I've got a sick baby at home. I'm ready to get to bed.
Well, we hope you'll stay for the closing remarks, which we're going to begin with Ms. Steffens, and then we're going to go backwards to Mr. Herkendahl. So any closing remarks that you have, anything you'd like to share with us that hasn't been covered? Ms. Steffens.
Oh, thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and everybody who's come here tonight. Since I've been serving as deputy treasurer, I've been attending different meetings for the ISAC and ICUBE, which are different boards for the County Association of Treasurers, as well as the Bi-County Education for Taxes, which contribute to educating me more on legislative changes regarding property tax, auto license, Department of Revenue. These meetings have also given me a chance to talk with other county treasurers who've been able to assist me with questions I might have, and also give me input on how their office procedures run. Having open communication with other counties is key to the success of the office, as well as having open communication with your staff. When I accepted the position of deputy treasurer, it came with an oath, stated that I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability, discharge the deputy's duties of the office of Deputy Treasurer in the Dubuque County, Iowa, as now hereinafter required by law. I plan to continue that oath as treasurer. We all lead busy lives and want the public to be best served in a timely manner. Having experience and knowledge, a knowledgeable leader such as myself is what it takes to get that done. I want to thank also again the League of Women Voters for their time and opportunity to speak. With my knowledge and background in the county, I am the most experienced candidate and look for your support on November 8th to be elected as county treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you. Your closing remarks, Mr. Wickham.
Yeah, I started off with a thank you to those that are attending and watching and participating, certainly the League of Women Voters, but I forgot to mention those participants here. I know it's not easy, and it's always the funnest thing to do to field questions and to get on the hot seat as well. And so I always appreciate quote the man and the woman in the ring that says that they can help make their community better. So thanks for taking part of this. I've enjoyed the last 6 years as a supervisor, and the main thing I've enjoyed is being able to work with various community partners and citizens. And so I think I owe it to you to kind of give you a quick list, if I can, of the things that we think we've accomplished that hopefully you'll find a success. First of all, the boards I served on, we were able to lower the property tax levy. The only mechanism that we can lower your taxes, the only one the Board of Supervisors can do is that changing that tax levy, and we reduced it 15% during my term for people that live in a city, incorporated areas. If you live in unincorporated areas, it's closer to 10%. So that's a reduction that has saved over tens of millions of dollars for Dubuque County because we didn't collect those taxes. The second new thing, our big thing, was the new 911 system, the new 911 radios. So if you've got an issue and you need to call help, it's going to work. And it's going to work for another 20 years. Very proud of that. We upgraded all our facilities in Farley and the West Campus. I mentioned the conservation areas. We've got 3 new conservation parks that will be around for future generations to enjoy. Very proud that originated the Tom Hancock grants for our EMS and our fire people. They're all volunteers. They're putting their life on the line to help us, and we provided them the training and the supplies. The Monix to Mowing program was another one I started, and I love how conservation had taken that off. We did a lot of funding for childcare initiatives throughout the county, early funding for the Dream Center, and then the bread and butter, 200 miles of roadway improvements, 83 new bridges, and 10 new take-home sheriff patrol cars.
Thank you. Closing remarks from Ms. McDonough.
Well, I'll just pick up right where Jay left off. So we've done a tremendous amount of things together, and Jay, I would credit you, and I intended to tonight, for the Tom Hancock grant. It's very beneficial, and the communities do speak about that. Now we need to turn our attention to helping them recruit and fill the need that they have in their communities. The grant does that, and we need to do more, and I think you agree. But this will be a year to find out and get reports back from people. We have expended many, many millions, and now we need to see, is it working? What's the report back? $1.3 million spent on brain health services and expansion in our community. And I'm looking forward to this year to start to see if we can determine if that's made progress. Also, the $18 million to date that we've expended through the federal rescue money, we need to monitor that and also look for results. So it's not just about governing and giving away the money in the good times. It is about making sure that those tax dollars are accounted back and that we're receiving value for what we've been doing. So I turn my attention to, again, this idea that we can be a highly effective county if we can do some planning. Let's do some strategic planning financially, identify goals, work together with critical partnerships. Maybe we can reach out to the city to do some joint efforts on things. So I really look at this, that this board, the current makeup, is doing good things together, and I do think that there's more opportunity for us to lead after we get some key pieces in place with human resources, with people, but I think that that's something that I greatly look forward to.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, your closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you to the League of Women Voters again for hosting this event. Thank you, Keith Lucy, for participating. I know you popped into the office the other day to kind of learn a few things that we do or don't do in the office and probably meet a couple of folks. I was on the phone and I missed out on that, but I'd be happy to give you a tour of the office and kind of give you the inner workings. And that's a standing invitation to anybody in the room. I'm excited about what we do, and it's kind of fun to show you what we do. So that's a standing invite. I would hope and expect that you'd walk away impressed with our operation. I understand that some elected officials think that they own the seat that they have, and they can't understand why people would run against them. I don't see it that way at all. I've been given a great responsibility to serve as the recorder the last 8 years, trying hard to earn another opportunity to do that. I'm confident that the recorder's office has come a long way since I took office. I'm proud of where we are today, very proud. I'll put our office against anyone in the country to show that we're cutting edge with technology, but more importantly, and what I'm really proud of, is what separates the Dubuque County Recorder's Office from other recorder offices, other government services at the local, the state, the federal level, is how we treat our customers and that exceptional customer service. That's what I get excited about. Going above and beyond is the expectation not of just myself, but everybody in the office. I'll be honest, most of the accomplishments are due to the great work of my staff, absolutely. They do a phenomenal job, and I'll give them credit every day of the week. I can't show them enough appreciation, but I'd like everybody to know what it means to me to be an elected official. First, it's an honor and a privilege. I don't take it lightly. I want to thank voters for giving me the opportunity to serve the last 8 years. And if I get reelected, one of the things that bothers me is when folks get elected to office, suddenly they think they're more important than other people. And you see it all the time. And frankly, it kind of feels like that's what it is today, where some folks want to go spend time with the governor instead of talking to you, the voters, and the taxpayers of Dubuque County. That bothers me. But I've always understood that the office is bigger than me. The one thing that's constantly in my head is that whenever that day comes for me to leave the recorder's office, that I'm going to leave it in a better place than I found it. I'd ask for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you. Mr. Lucy.
Thank you, and I definitely humbly thank everyone who's taken their time, the candidates and other people, to participate and watch this and to pay attention to what they're voting for here. I'd say definitely I'm looking forward to the opportunity to run the office. I definitely appreciate your invitation because I know someone recently told me, gosh, you think he'd let you in the office after you win, right? I said, well, why wouldn't he? He's here for service, as we all are. I look forward to working with the folks. Yeah, I've been in the office numerous times. Even before I put my name on, I asked one of the people, one of the deputies, about the office and how it runs there and everything. And these people have been there a long time. We have a great working relationship with people in there. From Andrea and Carol, Becky, Demetrius. I know we just recently lost Keisha, but I'm looking to work with all the people and take these skills I've had over 35 years working throughout the country with leadership and communication and building teams and developing things to find out where do we really need to take this and what can we do to enhance what's already running well. That's what I'm looking to do. I humbly ask for your votes here. I really look forward to working and bringing my skill set back home to entire Dubuque County. That's what I really look to serve. Rather than going out and beating the bushes for new business like I've been for decades, I really look to serve more in the community. I've had a lot of people tell me, you serve in all these other ways, countless ways through church and volunteering and helping the school system and coaching and all kinds of things. I see this as, instead of working with a lot of crazy situations, life and death and explosions and fatalities, all kinds of stuff at work, I would rather deal with people who are coming in to get their marriage license, birth certificates, and helping the county of Dubuque. That's what I'm really looking forward to doing here. And I appreciate your service. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Wooden?
Well, I hope you all have enjoyed the show. But thank you for having us, and thanks to everyone who came to participate. It's no surprise to anyone or not confusing anyone that the county attorney's office in this county needs a fresh start. We need somebody who can bring stability to that office. We need somebody who can create a team atmosphere in that office. And we're not going to get there by doing it the same old way. We need somebody in that office who's going to lead with a sense of humility and mutual respect for the people they work with. That's what I've done in my career. I've cared for deeply the people I work with. I've cared deeply for my clients, and I'll continue to do that as county attorney, seeking justice in all of our cases. And when we've got a team, that's when we can do the important work of getting justice in our community. And when we've got a team, that's when we can start getting consistent results. Results that when you hold them side by side, they make sense in context. So that violent folks are getting severe penalties because they know that there's a team that's going to back up when they say when they say, hey, we'll take you to trial and win, there's going to be a team there to back it up. Not a group of folks who don't get along and can't row in the same direction. So that's what I hope to bring to the office. Stability, a sense of teamwork, and results that we can be proud of because they're consistent. And justice requires consistency. So I ask for your vote on November 8th, or heck, October 19th. Get there early. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkendall, your closing remarks.
Thank you. And thank you again to the league. I often hark back to my Army experience, and the reason I do it is because that was a time when I was surrounded by great leaders, people who expected a lot of the people working for them. And one of the things they expected was that you were going to be a leader too. You were training the next generation of leaders, even from the first day that you started in the Army. And part of what I looked for when I came to Dubuque County, when I came to actually working for the Dubuque County Attorney's Office, is who are those great leaders? And the truth is, you don't find it in the county government, right? It's not the partisans who are the great leaders of Dubuque County. It's, for the county attorney's office, it's law enforcement officers, it's social workers, it's mental health providers, it's children who are victims of crimes who show great resiliency and are truly inspiring as you prosecute those cases. And it's the people of Dubuque County who truly are the good leaders of our government. I think it's important for those people that you have prosecutors who don't back down, even in the face of a lot of partisan sort of antics, in the face of truly adversity and basically doing the job. I think it's important that you have a chief prosecutor who's done what the other people in that office have done, who's actually walked in their shoes and has prosecuted cases competently. So, I think the people of Dubuque County are ready for taking the party politics out of it, actually voting for someone who is willing to lead from the front and do the job that we expect people to do in that office, to hit the ground running too in January and just know what little things will make big differences when it comes to the quality of criminal prosecution and legal representation overall. And really the only consistent result that I expect to get out of that office is a consistent striving for justice and truth. And whatever the sentence is at the end of the day, we don't have a lot of control over that. Whatever people decide to find on a jury, we can't always control that, but we can always be the ones pursuing truth and justice.
Thank you. The Dubuque League of Women Voters thanks the candidates for their participation. This forum may be seen again on City Channel Dubuque on Cable Channel 8 or Digital 117.2. It is being streamed live on the city Facebook page and website. Thank you to the City Cable Channel for providing this service. I'd like to thank the voters for watching and for the audience for providing questions tonight. Residents of the Dubuque County, please remember to vote on November 8th. Thank you.